So it is 5:30 now, and Lori left the room, but we're going to start the show. So Frank, are you ready?
I'm ready.
Well then, let's roll 'em. Good evening, and welcome to Anatomy of an Entrepreneur, where I have raised my enthusiasm level by about a third so that I seem normal. To you who are watching me, this looks normal, but in the studio, I look like a clown. Hopefully Shelby, I don't really care. Shelby is here visiting us today at Anatomy of an Entrepreneur. We should probably get a lower third at some point for Shelby.
Yeah.
We have a fantastic show for you tonight with the serial marketer, David Berkowitz. And we'll get to that in a little while. Let's do a little bit of housekeeping. First of all, this show is brought to you by My Instant Office. If you need a desk, a chair, an office, by the day, the week, or the month, come on in, sit down, and get to work. What we always say is, just add yourself. And this show is in collaboration with and sponsored by the Huntington Chamber of Commerce. I have a new victim here tonight. David, did you know the Huntington Chamber of Commerce is the largest chamber of commerce on Long Island?
Really? I had no idea. Tell me more.
This is going to be good. Yeah, they are. And not only that, but I asked her associate director, I once said to her, I said, you know, Courtney, I want to say something like the mission or something special about the Huntington Chamber of Commerce. And she said, we're the best darn chamber in the world.
Wow.
I know. So, and sometimes we even are sponsored by L&L Hair Care products. Is that true, Lori? We're sometimes sponsored by L&L Hair Care products.
Yes, we are. Sorry,
Yes.
I was doing my job.
So with that in mind, I just want to make sure that everybody knows that the purpose of this show is to inspire anybody, that virtually anybody with the right tools, the right guidance, the drive, and the passion can become a successful entrepreneur. And every week we bring on a different entrepreneur who's been successful in their own right, and we speak to them about how they got to where they're going. So tonight we have on a very special guest. We have on a gentleman by the name of David Berkowitz, who owns a firm called the Serial Marketer. Quite frankly, I don't really know what he does, and I think that's what I'm going to peel back. And but I would like to introduce David Berkowitz.
Hey, how's it going?
Good. How are you? How come nobody's clapping? We have enough people here. That's for you, not for me.
Okay.
Are you going to do the Anyway, David, it's really great to have you here. You have done some really incredible things over, I think, a very short period of time. And one of the things that I found, why are you guys laughing?
Well,
I'm trying to
I unplugged the headphones and
We heard you in echo.
laptop started.
Oh, okay. Anyway,
We are
David.
professional.
Thank you, Joe. Oh, by the way, we have a terrific crew here today. I wish we could turn the camera around, but actually we have Frank, the technical director, and believe it or not, back from assignment is Joe Lavolsi.
Thank you.
He had a paying gig. Anyway, you've done a lot in a very short period of time, and one of the things I thought was very interesting is when you were making a speech at Binghamton, and I'm going to bring up some of that presentation, maybe not you so much, but you talked about how you were really clueless. You had really no idea, and I can actually relate to that, and we will get into that discussion.
Okay.
Tell me about that a little bit.
About being clueless? That's like every day of my life. The being clueless thing.
Yeah, but you had no idea even what you wanted to do for a living. You didn't take any classes that had to do with business or the real world.
No, I was taking Yiddish. I was like really. Well, the one thing I thought I knew I could do and make a living doing is the thing I decided to just kind of throw out there and not do, and that was teach. So teaching, which by no means is easy, it's like one of the hardest things in the world to do well, but it was like the path I was on, so it was the safer option. So this whole unknown idea, like what else do I do? Well, like that was a really big question, and gradually there was a mission statement that came out of it, and this idea that maybe I could get paid to write and not be a journalist. And because I had too much respect for journalism, and I had a really scary professor who was talking about writing obituaries in Binghamton for years before you even get a real article. I'm like, well, like, great for those who are determined to do that.
Right.
That wasn't me. But it was this very organic process that came about, that especially in the earlier days of the like mass internet, like, oh, maybe there was a way to actually do something with this.
But why did you think, if you weren't going to be a journalist, what were you going to write?
Well, I didn't know, but I did see that this internet thing was coming. Like, this was, you know, I was graduated in 2000, so this is late 90s, and I saw that there was a lot more going on in terms of digital, and this was entirely fueled by written content. I mean, there was no video to speak of in 98, 99 as far as the internet was concerned. There was very little imagery of substance, and pretty low quality, and definitely not something anyone could produce. So that it was almost all fueled by the written word. It was pretty powerful, and this was right around when Google was starting, when Google had this competitor GoTo, and so text ads seemed like maybe the most viable ad format on the internet.
For you to write.
So it's like, yeah, maybe there was some way to do this, but I didn't know what it would be.
You know, I can actually relate to your path, not as distinguished as your path, but I can relate to it just about 15 years earlier, 10, 15 years earlier. Let's see, you graduated in 2001, I graduated in 84, so about 8 years earlier.
Okay.
I graduated. I studied history, I studied Russian, and I studied Russian language. That's what I studied at Binghamton. And people from all these different, the business schools and people that I knew, they're like, well, what are you going to do when you get out of college? And I just went, I don't know. So I can relate to what you're saying. But let's go back in time a little bit.
Okay.
Frank, there's a picture of this gentleman sitting in a high chair eating.
Really going back in time.
Yeah, I'd like to go here. What the heck is going on there? Why are you eating a grape leaf that looks like chocolate?
Yeah. This was pure chocolate right here. This is also. I've got a 4-year-old who this is the only picture of me that my kid constantly wants to bring up. So she'll be a big fan of the show, especially if I don't curse too much tonight.
Well, it's live, so.
Okay.
But with a 10 to 15 second delay. Yeah. So, but were you always kind of like this as a kid, where it's just like, this is what I want to do, and you didn't really think about the big plan, the master plan?
I didn't have much of a master plan. I'm still that kind of eater too. It's still very much
Making
me.
a mess.
Yeah. Still have that sweet tooth. So some things are true to form there.
But like, what kind of kid were you? Were you like a kid that just happy-go-lucky, took things as they came along? What were you like?
I mean, I was a very quiet kid. I mean, I like pure, almost pure introvert. But there were a couple things that were also this like introvert in an extrovert's profession, which I've kind of wound up in this is sort of where I've fallen into it. And there were some of these moments like in third grade, and I transferred from public school to private school in Westchester, and so I was really like new to everything there, and there was this school play, and I didn't get any major part. There's no reason I would have gotten. It's not like I was a talented actor at that age or at all. But the teachers said, look, like anyone who didn't get a speaking part who wants one can go and let us know. And I was the only one, maybe like the only one in the history of that school of like any teacher ever saying that to a kid who actually went and said, you know, I'm going to go for it. And I got it was some zoo themed play, and I got this part of a squirrel because they had to write it, like I guess they were out of zoo animals, so I was this squirrel who didn't belong in the zoo. And so once in a while I would go for it.
So you'd step out of your
Exactly.
comfort zone.
Yeah.
But you seem to do that all the time as an adult.
Well, yeah, and some of it was even very conscious at Binghamton. Like, I mean, I went to high school, and I was, again, a very shy kid there, and I'd switched back to public high school, didn't know pretty much anyone. It was just like so went back in my shell, and for a while, I was even like, I went to a really good high school, but I was ultimately just counting the days until this thing was done, you know, just like didn't find my place there.
Right.
And I get to Binghamton, and I was living in this dorm community, and there were 6 floors.
You were in Hinman.
In
Dorm
Hinman
school,
and
right.
Cleveland Hall. And I got there, and I just had this idea that that my first 6 days up on campus, I would hang out on the 6 different floors. And I just like kind of went around and just started like, it was almost this very like mayoral approach to doing this and building some of these relationships, and some of which have lasted to this day. But it was this idea that I'm in a different place. Basically, no one knows me. I can do whatever the hell I want. And so this is what happened in 4 years of high school. Like I'm going to throw that out the window and start fresh. And it led to some really different results. But even now, it's like, where can I tap into that?
Were you uncomfortable when you were doing those things?
It was an adventure. It was a game. So it was like, yeah, you know, I still, you know, it's not like I can just go up to anyone and everyone and just make friends. You know, I'm just not that naturally that gregarious.
Yeah.
But there was something exciting about it, and it was like a pretty warm place. Like, there were relatively few jerks around there. You know, so credit a lot to the just kids who were there at that time.
Right.
And you know, great staff and resident assistants and everyone. Like I'm sure there was a lot of help behind the scenes there. But it was just easier for me to find my place by starting anew and doing something different.
And you left Binghamton. You were like student of the year, or I don't know. You start. Well, let's get beyond. Before that, you worked for the school publication called The Pipe Dream.
Yes.
I did too. I also wrote for The Pipe Dream.
So what did you write?
They had this section called PDF, and I don't know if they had it when you were
No, that
there.
doesn't sound familiar. Maybe it was copyrighted by then.
A guy by the name of Joe Orsini and I think Gabriel Shapiro were like the editors. David Kalish, a guy named David Kalish was the
Okay.
editor. And so they let me write these things. And what I would do is I just write these stories about real life experiences of things that happened to me, or just things that I was interested in. You know, one article I wrote was about a time I got arrested. One time was about the nuclear salt flats in Nevada and the fallout. You know, whatever I felt like writing. So.
What were you arrested for? I gotta ask now.
So I was a school bus driver,
Uh-huh.
and the bus company knew that I didn't drink. So they asked me if I were to drive a bachelor party around Long Island because they were going to drink. These guys were crazy, and that story is an hour-long show in itself. But the things that happened that evening, I can't even though there's no restrictions here, I can't even tell you some of the things that happened. But at the end of the night, they allegedly turned a car on its roof because the last bar they went to wouldn't let them in. And all I know is they had me park over in a corner near this bar in Glen Cove, Joe Lavolsi. And
Bad luck.
and they got inside this gigantic yellow school bus and said, "Get out of here and keep the lights off." Keep the lights off in a big yellow school bus? And by the time the cops finally caught us, we were at a bar called Sergeant Pepper's in Glen Head. And they took us into the station and they handcuffed the nerdy little Jew to the the chair in the courthouse while the other guys are jumping out the windows and leaving. But they couldn't arrest them because they didn't actually have the evidence. And as long as nobody said anything, then that didn't actually happen. And so it was death or jail. Death or jail, you know, the risk. And so I didn't actually see them turn a car over on its roof.
Okay.
So I didn't actually see it. So I don't really know what happened other than I called my father at 1 in the morning and said, I'm at the Glen Cove Police Department. That's what happened.
I thought it was going to be some kind of civil rights protest or.
No, I wasn't. No, but I was at a civil rights protest when Ray Charles was playing at Binghamton, and he was also playing for the apartheid regime in Africa.
Wow.
And I did actually because I was in the Harper Jazz Project.
Okay.
And we actually protested that.
Wow.
So who's interviewing whom here?
Well, I had to, you open this door. I got to find it. Yeah.
Okay, well you got it. You got some goods on me.
Okay.
Now, so we're rolling along. You've decided that maybe you could start something. But this is what I find fascinating. You're working for the Pipe Dream, and nobody's really thinking online and digital at that point.
No.
How did you come up with this idea to do something online?
Well, some of it was some happy accidents. Like in the Pipe Dream, my friend Seth Mates and I, we were elected co-editors in chief in this really like just stupidly political internal fight, right? I mean, there's like campus politics, and it's the campus paper inside, like stupid beyond stupid kind of stuff. But all this stupidity led to Seth and I somehow as co-editors of the paper, and then it led to these charges being not, police, charges, but charges being brought by the old guard to the student assembly, which were entirely our friends, and everything was going to blow over. And then Seth and I just decided that like we had this statement prepared going in there when they were prepared to just say, okay, like this thing's over, go and have your paper and run with it. We said, we're done. Like, you know what? This isn't what we want. Like, enjoy. If you feel that strongly about it, have it. We'll do something else. Maybe Seth, Seth's a bit of a smarter guy. I think he had a little bit more of a vision. He went on to like BTV, and so he went to the TV station and went to like Newsday and WWE, and just fantastic. Like this was his passion. I didn't know, and so I still wanted to do something in the media space, and I was looking around and talking to one of the other editors there, Jess Siegel, and she was the features entertainment editor, and we're like, okay, so this internet stuff is pretty cheap. We did this like on the lavish $150 budget. We actually did some fundraising from a couple of student groups, and so we could get a website going. We like learned HTML on the fly and had someone designing stuff, and I mean, we went through this sort of Spinal Tap drummer series of webmasters, and but then we had to start marketing this thing and populating it. Like we formed this site, Traffic Zine, and it became a thing on campus. Like,
What kind of hits are you getting?
like traffic-wise,
Yeah.
for Traffic Zine, I honestly can't remember, and I don't even know if I could like figure out the analytics at that time.
Right.
Yeah. But this was.
But it
like,
became well known.
It became well known, and it actually won Student Group of the Year in the campus awards, and like that the administration gave out, and so I became Student Leader of the Year thanks to the work on traffic.
You've had so many successes, and I do want to play that in a second. Actually, I'm going to play it of Dean, Harvey
Stenger,
right? Speaking about some of your accomplishments. But I don't know why, but you're this really smart guy that, I'm not going to say you keep falling into things, but it seems like somehow you just kind of like, okay, yeah, I'll try that, and it becomes successful. What is that about?
Oh, there is some of this like a bit of this Forrest Gump type mentality to it, and also I'll be the first to credit luck and being in the right place, but also my wife, she was a little surprised, to say the least, when at one point I called her an opportunist, and said it in a really flattering way, you know, because it has such a negative connotation. But someone who sees an opportunity and goes for it, I think that's like a great compliment.
Right.
And I think there is some of this is why we get along very well, and so it's like I'd call myself much more of an opportunist than anything like a visionary, because I'm not always seeing this stuff 5-10 years in the future, or say like this is the thing to go after. But it's like, wait a second, this thing is presenting itself. Let's just try it and run with it, and maybe there's something there. And so I think part of it might be not having that vision, that like master plan that leaves me open to some of these things that others just might not run with.
Which is a real kind of an entrepreneurial thing, is that you seize opportunities. The other thing is, you know, a lot of times I talk about it's good to get uncomfortable, right? You have to get uncomfortable, get comfortable. I once wrote a blog on get comfortable getting uncomfortable.
Yeah.
But it seems like you don't even get uncomfortable. Like you don't care. Is that true?
Well, I mean, I embrace some of this discomfort, and it's like I always know when I'm in over my head. I always know when I'm the dumbest guy in the room, and if I'm sitting around a table, and like I've done a lot of moderating panels and things like that, and I see the people who are there, and they're brilliant. They're experts in their fields. It's when I started writing columns in the ad trades in around '04, and I realized like all these people, they all seem to be named Kevin. Kevin Lee, Kevin Ryan, they were just all named Kevin. And they were all these just amazing writers out there. And I'm like, I don't know anything. I'm a few years out of school. I haven't done that much.
And your name's not Kevin.
And my name's not Kevin. So I have everything going against me here. But maybe I can figure some of this stuff out. Like maybe I can tell a story in a way that helps people understand things. Maybe I can see things from a bit of the consumer's point of view, because they're so focused on the business point of view, on the marketing point of view. So maybe I can add some perspective that speaks to something that others are missing.
But somehow you've done this over and over again. As a matter of fact, I do want to play the clip that I posted on the different social media platforms, where Harvey Stenger is speaking about you.
Yeah.
I don't know that we're going to hear it in here.
I can read lips.
Okay. So if you actually turn down the mics, you can.
Maybe if we kill your mics and put the volume on a computer.
Can you do that? And then play the clip of the, not of, that one.
Okay, so I'm gonna pot you down.
Okay.
Okay. Ready?
Great. Yep.
I am pleased to introduce our commencement speaker, David Berkowitz, Chief Marketing Officer at digital marketing agency MRY and sought-after speaker at events around the globe. David Berkowitz founded the Hinman Alumni Network, has chaired the Metro New York Alumni Network, and is the youngest director ever elected to the Binghamton University Alumni Association Board of Directors. He's an expert digital marketer and blogger, is frequently quoted online and in print in the New York Times, the Wall Street Journal, the New York Post, and other high-profile publications. He was featured by Google as one of 4 mobile champs, and he helped digital agency 360i win the 2012 Media Agency Award for the best social media agency. David graduated from Binghamton University with a bachelor's degree in psychology in 2000, the same year that he was recognized as Student of the Year. He was the Hinman College commencement speaker in 2000, so today he makes his second commencement speech at Binghamton University. Please help me welcome David Berkowitz to the podium.
David, I meant it when I wrote that, when we put that ticker up on that video of you that said, "Ugh, David, you're making the rest of us look bad." What the heck is a Google mobile champ?
I don't know. They said, "Hey, you're a mobile champ. Come sit with us. We'll do a little feature on you." I don't know.
What is that?
I'm a champion of mobile, clearly.
Okay.
Mobile needs a lot of champions.
And now you took some agency, which I've never heard of, and you made them Agency of the Year.
Well,
What was that all about?
that wasn't me. I can't go on there and see like my boss watching this and that I made the Harvey did say I contributed to it, and it was
Okay.
part of a great team. But I did help found and build their social practice. That I think they'd be okay with.
To me, until recently, social media has been not a conundrum, has been enigmatic. It's been a mystery to me. And even now, it's a mystery to me, social media. How long ago were you into social media, and how did you figure it out?
I started blogging in 2004, so that was like my first professional touch point with it. I mean, there was a predecessor, not just to Facebook, but to Friendster called 6 Degrees that when I was in college, a bunch of friends of mine were into, and well before that, in the mid-90s or so, there were some bulletin board services that my friends and I were on, and so there were, like, I was an early adopter in a lot of ways, but in 2006, it was the big turning point for me.
That was also the beginning of Web 2.0.
Yeah, it was right around then. So.
And that might have had also, did you see that and see that's an opportunity?
Well,
that you could go two ways on the internet?
Well, I as part of all this, actually beyond the commencement address, the biggest crowd I ever spoke in front of was at the Web 2.0 conference.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and just like this massive ballroom, and I'm speaking about these trends in digital media, and I'm still looking back on it, like I can feel that sense of like, what am I doing there? But it was also this organic process. I got to 360i, this agency that at the time was known mainly for being this Atlanta-based search engine marketing company, and that hired me thinking like, okay, I'd start writing about some of this stuff. I had a bit of a presence out there. Maybe I could contribute to some of this hands-on strategy, and it was the first strategist of any sort they hired there.
Like a digital strategist?
Well, I mean, all they were doing was digital. It was just like, so yes,
Right.
but there wasn't anything else there.
Right.
And then as I started writing these point of view pieces on the industry that were just for their clients, and very quickly, this was like when MySpace was still a much bigger deal. It was the first wave of podcasting, and so clients were having questions about this. YouTube was just starting, and still, when I was starting with this stuff, totally unheard of. So, pre-Twitter, Facebook. It was actually the only time to this day I've used my Binghamton alumni email address was to get onto Facebook when you could only use a .edu. So I was one of the few people who figured that out, that I could kind of sneak on there.
Right.
And it was me and a lot of like 20-year-olds, so still a little weird.
How did you you were just making stuff up? Like, how did you know what to do? I mean, today there's like a whole formula to being on different channels, right?
Yeah.
There was no formula back then.
No, but there were a handful of us, like there were social media clubs popping up. There were a lot of these micro communities, like Consumer Electronics Show is happening in a couple weeks.
Right, CES.
Yeah, so a big thing now, nearly 200,000 people are going to this thing.
Yeah.
When I was going, there wasn't any like group of marketers who were there, but there were a handful of folks like Jeff Pulver, who
I know who he is.
so and who, like, this was in his early days of becoming a real connector, not just amazingly successful
He was the phone guy.
entrepreneur. Yeah, from Vonage and
Yeah, he started Vonage, right.
and so he was doing like these pop-up conferences and things like that, and you had folks like Chris Hewer who had founded Social Media Club, and there were groups like that. Scott Monty, when he was one of the first, and I don't mean to only cite men, it's like bias of my own network here, but Scott Monty, when he was starting as the social media guy at Ford, and we were just hanging out, and there were these blogger socials, and like Christina Curley, who was organizing those, and we're just trying to learn from each other, and a lot of us remain really close to this day because we were there making this stuff up together. Like B.L. Achman, I was like reading her blog when she was talking about campaigns that no one was doing, and some of it was for big brands, and some of it was for some like local pet food thing or something that just you could find someone to take a risk out there and do it and make a name for themselves. It was amazing.
Did you think it was amazing then? Or do you think of it as amazing as you reflect on what you were part of?
Well, what
and the perseverance that you had to get there.
What I thought was, there were a number of things I was amazed by. One was that also, like I remember being in some of these meetings with NBC's chief digital officer, and he'd be going, okay, so David, what do you think about this? And I'm like, why do you care? Like you're the CDO of, the network.
Because they don't really know.
No, but well, I mean, he knew more than most, but still, I used to being really humbled, and then and there were some of these things where my blog, it was never one of the highest trafficked sites out there, but having this and just putting yourself out there was a ticket into this community, and that I knew was really special. And there are some people from all over the world, people from Australia who were starting this Age of Conversation book series, and some guy who's working for Emirates out of the Middle East, and things like that that we're just connected to because we were part of this thing and just wanted to learn from each other. And the other thing that's so telling that also ties together a lot of what I'm talking about is that in these early days of social, so much of this, whether it's Pulver or Christina Curley or all these others, it was about bringing people together in person. Like I actually don't remember our digital interactions that much. I don't remember message boards, and this was before Slack and that kind of thing. I remember these dinners and pop-up conferences and things, and like actually spending time with
Isn't that
these
interesting?
really fascinating
Because it's
people.
actually a paradox
Yeah.
of what social media is.
Yeah.
So you found so much excitement in actually meeting people face to face, and social is about connecting non-face to face.
Well, also it's funny. Like I was just out in Dallas, where Dallas is the one place I've seen so far that Facebook is doing a lot of these static out-of-home ad buys, and so one of their big campaigns, and I think it was over the summer, was that it was all about the best part of Facebook is off of Facebook, and now something like 15 years after Facebook started, they're trying to promote that, and granted, I mean, they're trying to promote anything that isn't, interference in elections and everything else going on with what Facebook is dealing with these days.
Right.
But it's like, okay, someone there just got it, But 12 years before that campaign launched, that's what social media was for me, this excuse to connect in person.
So you're showing a lot of entrepreneurial signs, one of them being passion. You're obviously passionate about this stuff. The perseverance that you had to muster up. And then there's this whole thing where you just keep putting yourself out there, which is very entrepreneurial, is the ability to put yourself out there and not care what other people think.
Well, and still sometimes I do, right? Like a recent example of this is when I was rebranding my blog. It was Marketer's Studio for a long time, because in 04, 05, this idea for Inside the Marketer's Studio sounded really cute. Terrible domain name, mine, having these like two S's together and everything. So even then, from a marketing perspective, it had its flaws that I realized all too quickly. But I stuck with this name for a while, and then I went and there's a whole story behind it, but I rebranded everything under the Serial Marketer umbrella. And I thought when I did this in 2016, like, okay, this is great for me to run with. I loved the name, but a lot of people are serial marketers. And so could this be more of a generic? Could there be a group around this? And I was still like, I don't know, I don't really want to like it felt even kind of vain and egotistical to think, okay, I'm going to be the center. I'm going to be, in a small way, a Jeff Pulver or CK or Chris Hewer or someone who's bringing these people together. I didn't want to make this too much about me because I was creating the serial marketer brand. I couldn't do it. And then 2 years later, I was just thinking about things a little more outwardly. Say like, you know what? Let's just try this. I put a post on LinkedIn and I said, like, I'm thinking about doing this community. I think Slack is the way to do it. If you're interested in trying this and want to connect marketers with each other, maybe share things like tech recommendations, jobs, like news.
Do me a
stuff.
favor
Yeah.
before you go on. There are a lot of people in our audience, they don't know what Slack is.
Okay.
Can you just give a 30-second overview about Slack
Yeah.
and then go back into what you're saying?
Yeah. I mean, Slack is just a platform for creating any kind of group you want, and a lot of it's free.
Right.
Like I'm using a free version of it.
Yeah, we use it in the marketing collective.
Okay. Yeah. So so once you get over what's really like a 10-minute learning curve, it's just something you could use from your phone or the desktop or whatever kind of device you're using, and so you bring people together. You have these private communities, so it's not like everything's exposed on the internet. And then what's also nice is that you can easily message people one-on-one, which you can't do with an email group. And you can also create side channels, so you could just create the side one on some event you're hosting or some topic, and have these breakouts that just organize things in a really nice way. And then you can share files and do some of this stuff that, again, it's like a much more robust version of, say, an email listserv, and pretty user-friendly. And so,
Right. So
I have a question.
Sure.
So the question is from Mike's mom, Paula Carroll. And David, what do you think about the Russian infiltration on digital social media
That's
reelection?
a great question. Do we want to open up that can of worms?
well, it's like, I mean, we can open up a can of worms
Thank
that
you,
I'm
Paul.
like, I talk about being out of my league here. But I mean, I think where we go with it is like what comes out of this. And I mean, I think what's fascinating is in France, they're starting to do these classes on training people on how to spot real news, and I think that there's also a lot of issues with trust in the social networks themselves. I think it's going to take a very long time for Facebook, especially because they've been at the center of this, but also the founders of Twitter and in
Google.
their own way, Google, like to say, well, they played a part in this, and it might not have been a willing part, but there was a lot of this denial that it was that big a deal. And when you see the kind of scale that it happened at, it's like, well, how can these companies with ridiculous profit margins, especially Facebook and Google, that are collectively commanding almost the entirety of online advertising spend?
yeah.
They call it a duopoly because these
Right.
two players have
Sure.
such a disproportionate share, and so like they've got the smartest people in the room there. Like, they can't figure, if they can't do this, who can?
Maybe they don't want to.
Well, and that's the trust thing. Like, so do they not want to? If they, if it takes hiring 10,000 or 50,000 more people, like compared to the size of their companies and the size of their profit margins, like, okay,
It's affordable.
it's not the craziest thing to do. I mean,
Right.
is the rate they're expanding just in New York City now for Google and Amazon, like.
That's right. Google now also is going to be bringing in, 7,000 people?
More than that.
10,000?
Yeah, I mean, at least 10,000.
They've already got 5,000 here down in Chelsea Market.
Yeah, so there's a lot of room that it seems to be that this kind of attention and even contrition, right? Just this raw, like, you know what, we were part of the problem, and we get it, and we get why everyone right, left, and center is really frustrated by this, and so yes, like there's that personal level of responsibility that people also need to be able to say, like, look, I'm sorry I shared this stuff about some politician having some sex trafficking ring that was entirely made up by someone. Like, there's a lot of responsibility on that individual level.
Right.
That, granted, by blaming Facebook, it can be a little too easy for for your aunt or your sister or your kid to just say like, oh, they screwed up.
Right.
and so I haven't seen that many people go to that extent either.
Because it could change how they're doing things now, and people are not so good with change.
Yeah, and for someone to say, well, and someone would still say like, look, like I support this candidate for all kinds of reasons that matter to them, and there might be all these social issues that they line up with or whatever, but yeah, you know what, like no one wants to say they were duped.
Right.
That's tougher than this entrepreneurial stuff.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I mean, how many times have you seen among your friends or in Twitter feed, if you go there, for like people to say they were wrong, like, and the couple of
you'll
times
never
I
see
could think
that.
of,
You'll rarely see
it's
that.
so memorable because no one does that.
Right.
Yeah.
I wonder what would happen if we did do that.
Like, because failure now is cool, right?
Yeah, I know. We speak about all the time with all the guests. All the guests will talk about how, yep, failure's fine, and it's okay to fail because it's not really failing; it's a learning experience.
Mm-hmm.
When I was growing up, it was like, no, you didn't want to ever admit you failed.
Yeah.
And now it's cool to fail.
Yeah, I mean, I'm telling my kid all the time, like,
Go fail.
yeah, great. Right. Yeah, I mean, she's even a little young for that, but cool mistake, and like, it's okay. You go down that wrong path, and let's actually, I know that she's going to hit the dead end in that maze, and like, let's just go for it. See what happens. And
Yeah. I mean, Corey, that's even for you. Failing is all part of the process of what your company does.
Mhm.
Isn't that true?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And one thing I was kind of just thinking about, I know we're backtracking a little bit, the conversation of being comfortable, being uncomfortable. Like, what are your biggest fears as, whether you're approaching something new or even day to day, kind of going through maybe something you've done for a long time, you're like, hey, like maybe I need to change what I'm doing right now because everything around me is changing. So I'm just kind of curious about your fears as you move through, starting new companies and, doing things that you've always done before.
yeah, well, a lot of it is being part of this constant learning curve, right? Like even things like trying to do business development for myself. Yeah, sometimes I'm okay at it. Most of the time, I feel like I'm screwing it up.
That's how I feel.
So, it's just it's so hard to get all these pieces of it right, and so and being out there and saying to others, okay, like what else can I be doing? What am I missing? And a lot of people, when you're having these conversations with others that you're just trying to establish some rapport with, like they love that, and overwhelmingly, especially in these entrepreneurial fields, people love helping each other out. And
When they're young. I find when they're young, what I've seen is, and this is just my experience,
Okay.
as a field becomes more mature, people are less willing to help each other. In live streaming, everybody helps each other out. You give them the kitchen sink and tell them everything.
Yeah.
But there's other fields that I've been in, like in sales or in photography. Forget it. Nobody wants to give up their information how they captured that shot.
But with live streaming, let's just talk about this for a minute.
Okay.
So, I mean, how long have you been live streaming?
So I'd say that the start of it was about 3 years ago. Probably about 3 years ago is when I started, but I started getting serious about it about 2 years ago. I think it was more of the research in the first year.
And so, how does that relate to like when Facebook and Twitter were getting into it?
That's a really good question. So I started when there was an application called Meerkat.
Right. I love Meerkat.
And there is no more Meerkat.
Well, yeah.
What I loved about Meerkat was that you could flick on your iPhone and be broadcasting and people would just find you.
Yeah.
That doesn't happen anymore.
No.
Because, as you say, a lot of these platforms are throttling what is seen unless you're willing to pay them.
Yeah.
Right? So, so Meerkat started, I thought it was really cool. Facebook Live had not come on the market yet. The next step was Periscope,
Right.
and Twitter bought Periscope, and that outdid Meerkat. And now the cool thing was Periscope. And then once Facebook saw, oh, this is a business,
Yeah.
all of a sudden Facebook got onto live streaming. And now live streaming's been around a long time,
Sure.
but the live streaming really proliferated when Facebook brought it onto their platform. That's when it really happened.
And so what was your take on it then, and as this started happening? Like what did you see as even the use case for it? Or?
Right. So I really loved it because I actually, to me, I kind of liked it because I always loved video production. And then I kept scratching more and more, and I became passionate about it. I loved the human factor of live streaming. I loved the fact that I'm connecting live with an audience, that if I make a mistake, it's okay.
Yeah.
And actually the audience likes mistakes. They actually have fun, you know, like what's going to happen now?
Yeah.
There's this unexpected, they really like it. I feel the audience gets more connected when they're watching a live stream as opposed to a slick, pre-recorded, you know, edited video. And those are the things that I love about it, and the power of that you could send this message out anywhere. I mean, in this studio, anything you see on a news channel like CNN, like CNBC, like Fox, we're capable of doing that here.
Yeah.
The graphics, anything that you see, the animating, the camera angles, the quality of the image, anything you see that they do, we can pretty much do here. Same with if a minor league baseball team were to call me, you know, an independent league, like there's a Long Island league called the Ducks, if they were to call me, we could produce a live stream event of their baseball games that looks like and replicates the quality of a Major League Baseball game.
Wow.
We have that capability. Pennies on the dollar.
Yeah.
I had on a woman who was on NBC and WNBC for 30 years. Her name was Jane Hansen.
Okay.
She was a guest here. She was like, what is this place? Right? Because she's used to being in studio, whatever, in Rockefeller Center. And she's like, what is this? And I said, you know how you have those fancy satellite trucks that cost $1 few million? She goes, yeah. I said, you see that little cord going in the wall? That's our satellite truck. Because we could literally, I know people who broadcast games like in Alabama. They broadcast the high school games, and they're making a living at it. And if they can't get internet at the school, they will go to a neighbor's house with internet, with their Ethernet cable, and say, I'll give you $50, can I plug into your cable modem and into your router? That's your $2 million, it just costs $50, right? So, and you know, I'm sure you know who this is because I've read enough about you, but when you look at people like Clay Shirky talking about the democratization of our society, look what it's doing. It's changing the game of everything. Now it's okay, I have access, the cost is minimal, how do I monetize it?
Okay.
And there are ways to monetize it, you know, by giving away good content. And by giving away good content, you build trust and you build credibility with an audience that you may have. So if you're a business, let's say you're the David Berkowitz widget company, right? And you want to sell your widgets. You could create a show on not your widgets, but how do I replace widgets? You know, and you take questions that come in about how do you replace widgets. Now you're developing a connection with that audience. You're developing trust with that audience. You're developing credibility with that audience. They're more likely to want to do business with you.
So here's a question that comes up a lot as like new things become more mainstream. Should every business be doing this?
I don't know if every business should be doing this, but I can tell you a lot of businesses need to be doing it. 2/3 of the internet traffic today is video. By 2019, it'll be 82% is video traffic. That tells you that you need to do video. Now let's go one step further. Facebook did a study, and they found that People who watch live videos will watch them 3 times longer than a pre-recorded video. So if that much traffic is going on the internet, video, and people want to watch live video, what does that tell you?
And that was the one that also said they're 10 times more likely to comment, right?
That's right.
Yeah.
And 1,200% more shares. Right. So it's incredible.
Yeah.
What can be done with live streaming, and we offer that service here that people can come in and they can rent this studio space anywhere from, hey, I'm just going to put on my own show, to we'll help them create all the graphics. We can help them with producing and content and all that. But again, you took over the show. How did that happen?
I can't help it. It's that pipe dream journalism
Yeah.
mentality.
What's the question?
Oh.
Oh, you ask, Lori. You go for
I mean,
it.
we're sitting back here waiting.
Go ahead, Lori.
What was it like growing up with the name of a famous serial killer?
And why did you name your company Serial Marketer when
Well,
you knew full well,
that
David
I think
Berkowitz,
that's brilliant.
there was
That's
a serial
brilliant.
killer?
But I mean,
Wow, it's like
and I
real
know
witness
it
stand.
wasn't your time, David, but some of us sitting back here, we the Son of Sam was a real thing, and I mean, you have the same name, and people must have been like, "What? You're who?"
Yeah, well, it's also, there's a certain class of names that I came to appreciate where you get made fun of more when you're older. And so it's not like the schoolyard name. So, so when you're 10, this isn't the kind of name that the local bully is really going to get on for. You're not going to be like crying home at the end of the day that, people are making fun of you. But the first time I really felt it was I got to high school, and sorry to defame Amerenik High, but it was like when a lot of teachers would open up their roll books and they'd probably be seeing this more or less for the first time. Yeah, and so they'd call attendance that first day, and I was like by the second or third class I was ready for it, because it was always like, hey, Abrams, Baylor. No. and so this really happened by professional adult teachers who are fortunately, I'm sure, not there anymore, so they don't get too pissed about this. But yeah, like this would happen over and over again, and in some of the smaller classes at Binghamton, and so yeah, it's just, and there are certain places to this day, like the number of people who work for the TSA, who served on the force in '77, or there are certain folks who just love telling me these stories. Like they're just
Do you
so
get smirks
excited.
sometimes? Like when you go to somewhere and then you have to show your ID, do you just get a...
Also you think of the number of for just staying in New York. I'm asking for it, and so the number of building security guards who just love it.
But that, in a way, you can use it to your advantage.
The biggest advantage and disadvantage is that I don't have a great memory for names, and people remember my name far better than I remember theirs. But even like over the years, when I actually met my wife on JDate, and I spent a couple of years on and off this thing, and was like, so trying that, and then finally I had this really depressing New Year's Eve where I was with all my coupled up friends, and then I got home, and I'm like, you know what? Screw all this stuff. What I've been doing, like, I'm gonna stop taking this stuff seriously. I rewrote my profile as a multiple choice personality quiz, like you'd see in some like I still have this saved somewhere, and the last section had a scoring guide that kind of worked, right? But in the process, I changed my handle to Google this, and so it's just, and this was also when like I had no presence in Google. And my wife, when I met her, she's actually born in New York, but she grew up in Dallas, where common enough. People around my age who've heard of Son of Sam, but not necessarily make the connection to who it was. So when she sees my name, she was asking everyone in the office. She's like, did you know who David Berkowitz is? Like, yeah, run now.
That's pretty funny. So we don't have a ton of time left, and we have people who either they work for companies, or they're young, or they're starting off and they're starting a business, and to them, social media is a mystery. And I know you're going to say the same thing. Yeah, it is to me too. But what kind of like nuggets can you give some of the viewers out there who are watching this about they're starting a business and they know they need social media, but they really don't know a lot about it? What would be some of your suggestions?
Well, a lot of it is getting uncomfortable, putting yourself out there more, like having opinions, thinking about what you even have a point of view on. And maybe it's talk to some friend or mentor or just someone you do business with, some client or customer, and try to like, okay, so why do you come to me for this stuff? You know, and what I don't think everyone needs to go and embrace every channel and every platform.
That's another question is like, do I go on Instagram? Do I go on LinkedIn? Do I go on Facebook? What do I do?
Well, I think it's following some of that bent as an entrepreneur. And this also comes up a lot with people who are entering the workforce too. There are some similarities with the situation in terms of finding that thing that moves you. And if it happens to be text or imagery or video, then you pick something that works well with that framework. You know, if it's something that's much more, corporate and like, what is your business identity about? And if you're in more of an ivory tower and you want to be a little less accessible, then you can be a lot more private and formal, and that's great. If you want to share more of that, the personal day-to-day of what it's really like in the trenches, then there are ways to do that, and that even determines the kind of style you use.
Does it cost a lot of money to do this?
No, it costs so much more in terms of time and just figuring out the ideas. But there's also like another personal professional example is for after a while, like my blog I felt was running its course. Couldn't really tell who was visiting it, so I'm like, you know what? I'm going to try a newsletter and announce this to my LinkedIn contacts and email them and say, like, look, I'm starting this newsletter. I even called it the Serially Sporadic because I didn't know when I'd get to publishing it. It was less than monthly for a while. And then this summer, I said, I'm going to do this weekly. I need to build up more of this regular base. There's even another newsletter writer I admire, Heidi Cohen, and she was talking about how everyone's doing these newsletters like on a weekly basis, and there were these like Sunday business newsletters. I'm like, okay, well, everyone's doing Sunday, I'm going to do Wednesday. I'm just going to buck that. But so not based on data, just not following the herd. But I'm going to do it weekly because she's right. It helps when people have something to expect.
Consistent.
But it also helped me because now all the time I know that I know today when I was coming out on the Long Island Railroad that I had to go and polish up my newsletter and get this ready to go because it's going to hit tomorrow morning one way or another. And if I have to do it at 7 p.m. or 2 a.m. or what, like it's going to go out. And I'm thinking like that.
Right.
And so the same thing, if you're just starting off on Instagram or Twitter or Facebook, like if you start thinking, okay, you know what, people are going to expect to hear from me. I want to be part of this. I want to be able to respond to people. I want to like get in that mode. Then somehow or another, I'm going to make this part of my job or find someone who might be part of my team if I have a team who can help me get this thing going. I'm going to make this part of their job. And it's going to happen. And producing a weekly newsletter for me is so much easier than producing one that is maybe monthly when I don't know when it's going to hit. And it makes no sense except for the fact that you get consistency is everything.
I can't agree more with that. I think it's great advice. So one more thing. Since you're always doing something new and like what's on the horizon, what are you about to jump into? Is there anything you want to tell us?
I mean, I have something like there is stuff I formed an LLC for a startup recently that I'm nowhere near ready to talk about, but could be launching fairly soon. But yeah, it was just some idea that I was like, huh, I'm having trouble finding ways to discover other newsletters and promote my own, so maybe there's a way to do this.
We
And
Go ahead.
and I registered a domain and I got a logo on Fiverr, and then I went on Upwork and found a web developer to help me out.
Yeah.
But it was like just this going for it idea that we'll see what this is. I'm just always trying to learn by doing.
Yeah. So when it comes to fruition, will you come back here and talk about it?
Oh, I'm happy, like warts and all, really, because this is like it's really
That'd be great.
starting using these just
Yeah.
random like I've never done this stuff before, and so
Really cool.
so it's constantly
Right.
getting uncomfortable.
Right. And that's part, and also that you're willing to just keep learning, which is work
Yeah.
to learn.
And even doing stuff like, I didn't totally know what what would be coming out of this, but it's like again just experiencing this studio here and seeing, I've talked with you about your work and now I get to see some of your work.
Yeah.
Like that, I get, it's like, okay, let's take this conversation and stuff that we do online, and we do have some meetings through some of our Binghamton work, but now I get to see it in action, and
Yeah.
I'm going to see it in a whole new light.
Which I'm glad about, because now you can think about it in different ways of like, how could you use it? How could the marketing collective use it?
Oh, yeah.
And it opens it up for you rather than you just hear about what I do.
Even just like taking the time to know how to get to your studio,
That's pretty funny.
No, but it's like, oh, okay, so this is really easy, and
Yeah.
and this thing just appears out of nowhere. Like I had that version of Jane Hanson's experience, and it's amazing. So
Yeah,
and now
that's
just,
cool.
even
Glad.
though like who to refer your way and that kind of thing, like it all comes together
Yeah,
in
it's
a
pretty
much
cool.
better way than reading your website or something.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm glad you came.
Thank you.
And you even got to meet Shelby the dog.
I got to meet Shelby and this incredible crew.
We do have an incredible crew, that is for sure. And also the next show up is pretty incredible too. So I want to thank you so much for being here. Let's talk about other things that we might be able to do together.
Love it.
And we will not be on next week, and we won't be on the week after. We're not going to be on until like January the 7th or 8th. And I do have ideas of who the guest is going to be, but I'm not at liberty to say because they're not set in stone yet. But anyway, we really appreciate you taking the time to watch our show. I know some of you will be watching it we get a lot of views after it's live.
Yeah.
And if you still have questions, make comments. We will answer them. And everybody have a great holiday season. And we will look forward to seeing you in the new year. See ya. Corey, I was just talking about how you're relentless about putting content out and all the social media channels.
Yeah. And where do you publish it? Sure.